Why Burundi?
Thank you. Well, why Burundi? Basically, because 19 years ago I was in a good job and I was on a conveyor belt of success and affluence, and a guy, I'd been praying, Lord, I will do anything, I will go anywhere. And I think that's what he wants from all of us. I will do anything, I'll go anywhere. And the fact is, you know, feel at peace. I don't think he's going to call you to Burundi. You know, my agenda is not to get you out to join me in Burundi, but he does want our full surrender. So that was my prayer, Lord. I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. And I was in a pucker job, and it's going to track me down in Bishopsgate in London, the city. And we met up. I didn't know who on earth this guy was, and he starts talking to me. He says, "My name's Rob, and I've been praying, and I believe God sent me to you." So my heart's pumping in my chest. And he says, I believe God wants you to go to Burundi and be involved in youth and mission and evangelism. So I'm like, all right, what is this you, or is this he a nut job? So I said, all right, thanks, Whit. I'll think about it, I'll be spiritual, I'll pray about it. I went back to my job, I was in front of the computer in a job that had nothing to do with Africa. And I said, right now, God, if you want me to go to Burundi, I want you to give me a radical sign, because it'll mean leaving family, friends, security, career, everything, going to a place where I might get killed and people have tried to kill me. So give me a radical sign right now in the front of the computer to justify such a radical change of career. That was the prayer, specific prayer. Right now, give me a sign. And I didn't wait long. The phone rang, I picked up the phone, and the voice on the other end, out of the blue, said, "You know anyone who wants to work in Burundi?" So what do you do with that? You know, you've got three things you can do with that. Either you can say, well, Simon, you're lying, that's a fabrication, and then, you know, I can show you pictures. You don't die for a lie, do you? The disciples wouldn't have died if they didn't believe that Jesus rose from the dead. So hopefully we discount the lie. Then you could say, well, that was a coincidence, and I guess coincidences do happen, but that's a pretty full-on coincidence. I think most of us would agree that wasn't a coincidence, that was a God incident. And in 2 Chronicles 16 verse 9, you've got this great verse that says, the eyes of the Lord, you know, range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him. And that's what He wants. He just wants full commitment. And so that was the start of a crazy journey. I've been there 19 years. I totally thought I'd die before the age of 30. I'm now 45. And had, you know, lots of sort of nutty experiences, and then I was single at the time, so I was very, you know, I considered myself totally expendable. I was ready to die. I used to leave letters to my family and stick them on my sister's pillow each summer and say, if I die, don't worry about it, it's worth it. And you know, I'd reached that stage of Philippians 1:21 where Paul says, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. You know, it's a win-win if you're fully in. For me to live is Christ, to die is gain. He says, what shall I desire? I actually desire to depart, be with Christ, which is better by far, but convinced there's more work for me to do, I'll be around a bit longer. And so yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
Wow, this is going to be great to get your questions coming.
I would love to know, I know a little, but maybe people don't know you, some may not know you. So when you went out, were you on your own? Were you married? Did you have kids?
Yeah, so I was on my own. I wasn't thinking, I was 25, I wasn't thinking of marriage because, you know, I'm going to die. So praise God, I haven't died, and all that means is there's more work for me to do. But in due course, a few years later, I met a very normal but radical risk-taking lady who signed up. And my proposal to her was, are you ready to be a young widow? So not your average proposal, but you know, she had to count the cost. And so behind that question, what's coming is, you know, how can you do that? How can you maybe as a father have your kids out there, and is that wise, and are you meant to, or are you completely irresponsible? So I'd say that in preempting that question, you know, my wife signed up to it. She had to be fully in. It was, you know, Burundi was integral. That was the call of God in my life. And then maybe things change a little bit when kids come. Because suddenly, you know, I've got 3 little eyes, they're out there right now, I'll be joining them flying back out on Sunday. But, you know, they're 12, 10, and 8, and you're taking out these precious little, you know, from birth. And the temptation is, for you over here, for me out there, is to live by fear rather than faith. And that's a massive deal. And obviously I'm confronted with that in extremis in what was the most dangerous country in the world. I know that because my mummy sent me through a newspaper cutting with Burundi at the top. I don't know if she was trying to encourage me, but you know, it has been extremely dangerous. It's less dangerous now. We're probably only in the bottom 10 most dangerous countries in the world right now, but it was full-on dangerous. I remember once driving down the road, 40 people were killed that day, and we got through ambushes. I've had people I care about being killed. I had a guy come to my house with a grenade to blow me up. He written a letter saying he's going to cut out my eyes. Lots of crazy stuff. But, you know, whether it's out there or here, you know, think of the last major decision you took, and peel back the layers and get to the nub of that decision. And did you take that decision out of a place of faith or fear? And I think most of us, if we're ruthlessly honest, it's fear that motivates. I store up my pension and my security in my pension in my house in case God's not going to be faithful. And yet He is faithful, and He is worth giving our everything to. And so please choose to live by faith and not fear. And I've had loads of examples of that. To encourage you. For example, in 2015, we had an attempted and a failed coup, an attempt at regime change. It's similar to Turkey. If a coup fails, it's just an excuse for the leadership to nuke the opposition. And I don't know how far this is being broadcast, so I'm not going to go into that because it's incredibly sensitive for me. But we went back 20 years. I've wept more in the last few years than all my previous years of my life combined. Some incredibly breaking experiences and so much suffering. But what happened for my family, and we're leaders out there, I've been there so long, and we've become Burundian, so the temptation is I want to get my wife and kids on the next plane out because I don't want her to get raped, and she's been stopped at roadblocks and stuff, and I don't want my kids to be traumatized or killed, but I've got to make that decision out of a place of faith and not fear. And if we left, then all the expats would leave because they look to us as the leadership, informally, and so, Lord, what are you going to do? We're not going to leave unless you give us the all clear. Well, that decision was beautifully taken out of our hands because my son swallowed he was 5 at the time, he swallowed some popcorn into his lung. He starts breathing like that. So we went to the only US pediatrician in the country. He said, you need to get on the next flight out of here. He needs a bronchoscopy, which is, a little camera on some tubes that go in, quite invasive surgery. So that couldn't happen in Burundi. So the Lord took that decision out of our hands. They got on the next plane, and loads of people around the world were praying for us, and lo and behold, on the day of his operation, he coughed, and out came that curve. And a doctor will tell you that couldn't happen 10 days later. That was God's miracle, God's grace for us. But then a few months later, we decided to go back, and I'd been coming and going. They'd been in England for one school term, and I came back from Burundi, and I'd asked all hardcore, not your average people, hardcore men and women of faith. I'd said, would you bring your family back? They all said no. One person said, yeah, come back. The rest said, don't you dare bring them back, it's way too dangerous. And with my wife, we set aside a week to pray and fast and ask God, should we go back? And that was the week, that was the week literally when 160 people in the capital were murdered in broad daylight. There'd been another attack on the capital as an excuse to take out the ringleaders who we've been having dialogue with in terms of trying to broker peace. And there was masses of fear of potential genocide, and it's about the most fearful week since 1993 genocide. And so that was the week we were deciding to go back. And of course everyone would say don't go back, but we just turned to the Lord saying, no, you can go back. You should go back, because you vote with your feet and you suffer with your people. And it was the last day of our seeking the Lord, and we're based in Southampton. I went for a last walk. I said, I'm just going to go for a last prayer walk on Southampton Common. I'd love you, Lord, please, in your grace. You don't have to, but this is the heaviest decision I have ever had to make. Because if anything happens to the families and the kids, no one will forgive me. I won't forgive myself. And so please just give me a sign that we're on the right track in returning and not following the common sense voices of many people who speak from a place of fear. And so I was walking along Southampton Common, and as I walked along this path, some other bloke was walking along that path, and our paths coincided, and it turns out this guy had been a missionary in Pakistan. He'd had death threats like me. He'd had the child kidnap issues. And he just spoke faith into me, and I'm like, Lord, within a 200-mile radius, you could not have handpicked one person who was better equipped to speak faith into me. And we went back, and we've had an amazing time. And I would meet people in the bank, and they'd say, "Well, you're here, brilliant. Presumably your family's not here. Wow, it's solidarity. It's living by faith, not fear. And the result of that is so much more credibility and authenticity and fruit. And you know what? You are all of you here, pretty much, in a very different and safe context. But a big lesson for you to learn is that I have lived in a sort of war zone, post-war zone, re-entering war zone conflict for 17, 18 years now. The advantage I have over you is that I cannot lead an apathetic life. For years I have thought, I've heard bombs go off. I lived, particularly the first 3 years, with an expectation that I'm going to die next week. If you think you're going to die next week, you're not going to spend 6 hours on PlayStation, whatever. You're not going to be watching TV all that time. You're not going to be, spend your life worshipping the altar of Netflix, because there's too much to live for. Life is so urgent, we've got to grab the bull by the horns and live. And so, load stream of consciousness.
I'm going to give us all a chance to go, God is amazing. He is on fire, the heat. And Simon, you are speaking faith into us. We've got a couple of questions though, because we really want to extrapolate from you some really cool stuff that we can learn for our context. So question number one, like what are you doing in Burundi? Just give us a short kind of sense of what are you actually doing? Church planting, raising up leaders, and then we've got another question for you as well. So
okay,
tell us about the context.
I'm a youth evangelist at heart, so that's my passion. So I went out, birthed 3 years, totally thought I'd die, preached like a headless nutter, turbocharged headless chicken for 3 years in that expectation that I was going to get taken out shortly. Saw loads of people come to Jesus. Let's, pluck a number out there. Maybe saw 10,000 people come to Jesus. Then I came back, preempting burnout, to England for a year. And the takeaway from that year was that in Ephesians 4, and when it talks about pastor, prophet, evangelist, teacher, their job is not to prophesy, evangelize, pastor, teach. It's to equip God's people to do it. So I came back with a much more sort of mature, I guess, theology of mission and ministry, which is instead of me, Simon, seeing quite a lot of fruit, why not make 1,000 Simons? Why not multiply myself out in terms of equipping the saints to do that, which is what Ephesians 4 is all about. And so that ended up being the birth of Great Lakes Outreach. I'd gone out under Scripture Union as one ministry. I got saved through Scripture Union, loved Scripture Union. And then I thought, well, actually, my job, could I articulate that stage 2003? It was basically, I am going to get behind the best local leaders of passion, integrity, gifting, and vision to transform the nation. It's not the white man's religion. Jesus wasn't white. And so I feel the need to be preaching the whole time, because the fact is I can equip the saints to be part of a movement, so that right now I'm here, I know that we have trained up people, and people today are leading people in numbers to Jesus throughout every province in Burundi, which is Ephesians 4 in action. So what do we do? We support 10 organizations out there. We have a power once a month where, these are incredible people. It's not incredible, that's not condescending, they're not incredible African leaders. They're amazing people. And they are, we're involved in an indigenous missionary movement. We're Youth for Christ. We've got 3-4 schools of them. They're all the best schools in their province. The first English-speaking boarding school. We've got a Muslim evangelism group. We've got campus outreach through Fusion or UCCF, that sort of stuff. We've got imported high-yield crossbred Frisian cows and lifting people out of poverty. Wow. So it's very holistic. Pioneered the first Christian AIDS project out there every weekend in different schools, doing outreach. Street Kids project. I said already 3 orphanages. No, so a whole bunch of stuff. Evangelism Explosion. Theological training. So the list just goes on.
That is amazing. Wow. I'm taking it in, seriously taking it. I'm thinking, anybody else feel like I need to do something with my life? Is it great question here, Simon? Very, very real, and I guess it in different ways applies to many of us, or many people here. How can you pray or be prepared to be all in if you are married to a non-Christian? If I pray for God to send me anywhere, then does that put my marriage and children at risk?
Yeah, that is a great question. And the fact is that God takes you where you are in the situation you are in, and sometimes you might have come to faith later in life yourself, and so for those of us that aren't yet in that position, when the Bible's clear in terms of who we should look for a life partner, and that is someone who shares our faith. That's absolutely critical, because it's great to be on the same page and do ministry together. And I do that with my wife, and we are, we're yoked together, and that is the ideal. The fact is, our life is messy, and so that question is coming from a place of the non-ideal. You are committed, you've made your vows before God, whether you acknowledge them or not, to that person, and if they're not on the same page, you cannot just naff off and go and be in a missionary somewhere. That's not what you're meant to be. You're meant to serve and love. If it's a wife, love your wife like Christ loved the church and laid his life down for her. If you're a wife, you're meant to love and submit and encourage and pray and fast and seek the Lord. Plead with him that your love mate will come to know Jesus. You're meant to be modelling that to your kids. And the fact is that is your mission field, isn't it? That is where you're called to be faithful. And you might, I think a whole bunch of us in this room are saying, I would love to be off doing something completely different. I'm very dissatisfied with my current life situation. That's the reality. And discipleship is the rubber hits the road. It's it's tough being obedient, and the grass is always greener somewhere else, by the way, isn't it? Invariably, but actually, no. This is where you're meant to be.
That's brilliant, and that's absolutely true, isn't it? Actually, that wherever God has placed us, that is the place.